Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome to Spirit Sessions, a view of the light for wherever you are in the world. We welcome you in. This is a show that brings you all sorts of different modalities, all sorts of different things, all sorts of different views of the light. And today we're bringing you Tyler and Aaron from saying it's time for the truth. It's time for the truth because they bring a different perspective to the truth from normal media, and they're bringing some things to our awareness today. And we would like you to share this out to all your friends and family. Get it out there, and whoever wins today, whoever shares out the most today will win a session with me. And whoever has shared, we will tell who won out from last week at the end of the show. To start the show off, while you're sharing out to all your buds and that, I thought I'd give you a little card today because, well, last week Chris just inspired me to give out a card from the unicorn deck today. So this is for the group collective. It says openings. Unicorns are offering you a key to a new opportunity. Your guidance is to be aware of what is being made available. If you cannot see it, take the key and create your own opportunities. And what I get from this is today we're going to learn about different things that may not have come into your awareness before. And it's your job to take that information and research it and find out your own truth about what's going on, really. So, Teresa, would you please introduce our guests?
Yes, I'm so excited to do this. So welcome to Spirit Sessions, a view of the light, everyone. When we had Darius Barazande on our show, he afterward said, you guys have got to listen to Journey to Truth podcast. You've got to meet up with those guys. And I'm thinking, okay, who is this? So I looked them up, I found them, and I've been watching them, and I've learned the most interesting things. And so I'm so excited to have them here today. We have Tyler Kiwala, who's an experienced independent researcher, passionate about disclosure, and he's an activist in that, which is really cool because as much as I want to know the truth, I'm not much of a truth seeker. What I do is I find people I like to listen to that I trust, and that's where I get my info. But this is what I admire about you guys. And so on this side, Aaron Kuhn. Aaron Kuhn is a researcher and activist, and he is also into disclosure and the awakened community. And you had your awakening when you were about 25, what I was reading here, which is really exciting because there's always questions. You've got to question the narrative of what's, thrown at you to see what's going on. And that leads us all. Questions are what led me on my own awakening and stuff. So I'm really excited to have you guys here and together. Once you guys met at Disclosure Fest, was that Shasta, California?
Dimensions of Disclosure.
Dimensions.
2018, which was in Loveland, Colorado.
Oh, Colorado.
Which is close to kind of close to Fort Worth, I think.
But we didn't realize that we both were from St. Louis, but we met in Colorado.
Or Fort Worth, Fort Collins, whatever that town's called.
Loveland.
Yeah, it's north of Denver and Boulder. It's
Loveland. Is Loveland.
Loveland. Yeah, well, I'm saying where it's at.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, yeah, we met at that conference, and I just randomly started talking to Tyler and his dad, and then they were like, "Hey, do you want to go on a hike with us?" And I was like, "Sure." And then on the hike, we found out we were all from St. Louis, from the same city. So,
oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was total synchronicity.
So what conversation was it that made you to make this amazing podcast and show on YouTube that you do? Because that is brilliant and it's big. What brought that about?
So Aaron, he actually lived in Kansas, Wichita, Kansas.
I was living in Kansas at the time, actually.
At the time, but he was from St. Louis. So he was in town, and we decided to meet up for lunch because we hadn't seen each other since the conference. And it was at that lunch at a Mexican restaurant. Aaron had the idea, and I mean, it wasn't even a week later. It just somehow we manifested it, and we just jumped into it, and we haven't looked back. It's just kind of, it just kind of happened. It fell into our laps. It was so effortless, but
Well, we were talking and we realized we both were really wanting to do something, but we didn't really have a clear idea of what we wanted to do. We just wanted to do something.
Yeah.
And whether that's a YouTube channel or blog or something. And I kind of like the idea of a podcast just because I thought that'd be a fun and easy kind of thing to do. And I didn't even have the idea to like interview people. I was just more at that time thinking like just us two kind of talking and putting our ideas and thoughts out there. And but then we kind of were like, hey, let's try to get people on to interview as much as we can. And we had no intentions of every week having like a different person like we've been doing, but it just kind of like kept happening. We just messaged a bunch of our friends at first and they all agreed to do it. And it just kind of kept taking off. And it's been like this like river of like, it's been flowing and it's like been nonstop. We've just been going with it. We're like, this is amazing. Let's just keep going.
Yeah, and I always say, when something's meant to be, when it just happens so effortlessly like that. We really didn't have to. I mean, you have to work at it. Just it was just happening naturally, and it felt right. So many synchronicities were taking place in my life that were just confirming that I was on the right path, that we're doing the right thing. And it just, when something is right when you don't have to force it. And we haven't had to force anything. It just kind of, it's actually fun for us.
It is. I agree. I love that. And I remember, Tyler, your dad was the first guest, right?
Yeah, he was.
That's so special. I love that. So, so your content, how do you guys become activists for truth and stuff? That's not an everyday person thing. How do you do that?
It becomes an everyday person thing.
Well, so before the podcast, which is actually where we got the name from, Journey to Truth, I still do, but I had a Facebook group called Journey to Truth that I was adminning, and I would just share tons of stuff every day to that group. And that's like Tyler joined it around the time that we met. And that was like, I was kind of mainly just being an activist on Facebook through the group and through posting stuff, I guess, at that time. And then we started the podcast and we didn't know what to name it. And I was like, well, let's just use the name of the group, I guess. Just call it Journey to the Truth Podcast. So that's where that came from. Yeah. And then we used the group to kind of help promote the podcast.
But in doing so, as far as researching goes, the more people we know, the more information we get sent to us. People are always sending us links. People are sending us information. You should read this. You should check out this person. Aaron has a library of books. We're always getting our information through books. And, obviously meditation helps as far as confirming some of the information you're getting. You have to feel into it, use your gut. You can't just take everything at face value. It's a process, and you just really have your discernment cap on at the same time, put it all out there and let people decide for themselves. We get a lot of pushback from people like, anybody trying to put this truth out there is going to get some negative feedback. And people need to realize that just because we're putting it out there doesn't mean we're claiming it as fact. This is where you need to really just learn how to be able to take everything in, not get triggered, process it, and come up with your own truth.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and you guys, any subject, you guys go follow down any rabbit hole, right?
Oh yeah,
all of them.
I mean, we try to formulate the most clear picture of the whole truth. You have to be willing to take in information in every area. Doesn't mean you have to believe everything. In fact, that's the opposite of what you want to do. You want to take in everything and then based on your own intuition, your own knowledge, and you're able to kind of piece the puzzle pieces together and try to formulate what the clearest picture of the truth that you can. And don't ever like solidify that, because what a lot of people do is they get this solidified, this is the truth, and then they don't ever want to change that, right? It's like set in stone. And then they go out through their life kind of like everything else has to fit in their box that they've already formed, that they already think is the truth. Well, what you want to do is keep it open to where it's constantly evolving based on new information and based on new intuition.
And you want to always don't be afraid to admit that you're wrong about something either. That's happened to both. That's happened to both of us, all of us. If you're going down this path, if you are seeking this information, you have to be willing to admit that sometimes you may have been promoting something or believing in something that was false or that was wrong, and new information comes along, and you have to be open to that new information, and you have to.
Which is why ego gets in the way of that a lot.
remove the ego.
You think you're right. You don't want to be wrong, so you're not willing to.
Yeah, and just admit that we really don't know anything. Honestly, you don't know what you don't know. So it's, I don't know anything. He doesn't know anything, even though I know more than Aaron. No.
So what you're saying is the more you know, the more you find out you don't know. Is that
The more you realize how little you actually know. Yeah. And how big the universe actually is and how much is actually out there. And but it's funny because the more I've grown on this journey, the more I realize like the real journey is within, like it's easy to get caught up in the external information and external what's happening. But the real truth and the real growth happens from within.
I love that.
Absolutely.
I used to see it. There's the spiritual ones that, it's rainbows and dragons, dragons, no. And then there was the truthers, and for a while there were two different camps. But to be awakened spiritually is also to be aware, and we're striving to come to more. So at some point that combines. So how did your guys' spiritual journeys combine? Because I see you're speaking about going within for the intuitive answers and stuff.
So that is the biggest part of it. Like Aaron said, you can't. I don't care who you are. So you have to be vibrating at a frequency to be able to accept information. So if let's say you're vibrating at a low frequency, low vibe diet, I'm not judging anybody. We're all their own levels. But if you are in that low vibration, then anything outside of that frequency won't resonate, or it just won't register. It'll go over your head. You won't even see it. It won't even be part of your reality. So until you go within, raise your vibration, and become and live in that space, live in that frequency, you start having experiences. You start seeing orbs. You start seeing UFOs. You start Sasquatch, whatever. But what also happens is your BS meter kicks in, and you can discern what is truth, what isn't. Or you can read an article and know immediately, like, okay, this is crap. This is nothing. You could not even read the article. Just look at the headline. You can start feeling into stuff without having to.
You can just like sense the energy behind things.
Yeah, but if you don't go inward, you can't do that, and that's where you have all these skeptics who are so based on information and hard evidence. And I need to know this. Where's the proof? Well, the proof. We're never going to get that type of proof handed to us. That's just not the way it's going to play out. So that's why you have to go within and get yourself to the level. And the law of one says, the truth without proof. That's where we want to be. Like you need to know the truth without having to be shown a piece of solid physical evidence. You should just feel into it and know. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And like, sorry.
But I was just going to say, like, I think my background helped with the spirituality a little bit. I grew up Christian, like fundamentalist Baptist Christian. And when I had my awakening, I, for the first time ever, started questioning my own beliefs and like going on a search for what truth actually was and what I actually believed. And I had to like deprogram myself, and I basically went through my dark night of the soul. And it was really hard, but I had that spiritual foundation from that at least already, and I kind of held on to that and got rid of the dogma of what I believed, and then I started coming across all these spiritual concepts and all of that stuff, and so I kind of like was integrating that along with all this the conspiracy and truther stuff and ET and all that stuff kind of at the same exact time. So it was like my whole world was just like expanding so rapidly, and like it was a very intense 2012 was a really intense year for me.
That's my year too.
that
That's
you
when
too?
I started questioning everything, and then what do I love? Who am I really? You know that song, what do I stand for? You know, it's like what? And that's the questioning is what led me to here. So how
Yeah.
about your families? Were they supportive of you during this time and now?
Well, my father is him and I kind of went through this whole process together, which was really beautiful.
Yeah,
And I'm
it's rare.
starting to
really-
realize it more and more now as I get into it and talk to other people who are struggling with their parents. So I feel very fortunate in that aspect. Aside from my dad, the rest of the family, as far as I know, they think I'm crazy. I don't care. I don't care.
That's a good badge to wear. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a struggle at first, but I think that's with everyone. Like your reality is shattered. Everything you thought you knew is gone. The relationships you once had, you don't resonate with them anymore. You kind of just like everything just leaves, and but that's good because now you're making room for all these new people, this new information. The amount of from what I've lost from my past life to what I've gained now was worth the trade-off.
Wow.
You have to be willing to sacrifice, and realize that none of that stuff that wasn't even me. I didn't even know who I was. So there's no way I could know that's what I needed in my life. It's hard to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that.
So do either of you have like a favorite topic of finding the truth in? Like some people have like oh yeah, I really, and you're kind of keen on one side or another.
What do the people need to know the most?
That was going to be along the lines of my question too, which was like, what was your most profound experience that really helped you kind of, confirm for yourself that there's more? So I guess that would kind of wrap up together, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to?
I can touch on that. Yeah. So I've always been into the whole cryptozoology, like the Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and then the UFOs, the ET stuff. That was just fascinating my whole life. Until I started getting into the information about what was really taking place, it was just always all fun and games to me. And then you start realizing the reality of what's going on. Oh, wait, this stuff is real. This actually could be happening. And so I started learning about the secret space program from Cosmic Disclosure, Corey Good, which, people can take that information for what it is, but it resonated with me. It really resonated on a soul level like I've never experienced before. I'm like, there's something to this. And I was like activated. I started having experiences and just all kinds of stuff. But I realized, to answer your question, the secret space program in general, to me, was like the big aha moment. Okay, so now I'm actually hearing something that validates what I've always believed in, instead of turning on the History Channel and then them ending every episode with a skeptic debunking it. And then that's what would always happen. So you're always left guessing and not knowing. So now I've found an avenue for information that was confirming things, and it made a lot of sense. So the whole life off planet and the secret space program existing really opened me up to like, wow, this is. And then I realized it went all the way back to before, like the late 1800s, like World War II. This secret space program started and potentially had been going on maybe even longer than that. You realize everything you thought you knew was a lie. So that's where it started for me.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, the ET kind of reality was what it just resonated. Like Tyler said, like when I first started coming across, I was just like I was just on YouTube, just watching every video I could from different people. doing presentations talking about ET, like David Wilcock. I watched a ton of David Wilcock presentations. Project Camelot. I was watching a lot of their videos. David Icke, Dolores Cannon. Yeah, I would just like go on YouTube and just watch like hours on end of videos.
You still do
just
that.
take it. I still do that. I mean, not as much, but like
I do, yeah.
Yep.
that year, it was like almost every day. I was just taking in as much information as I could because it was all so new and fascinating to me. And when I was like, man, it just resonated so hard with me that there was other life besides humans and all throughout the universe, right? So it's like for the first time, like Tyler said, I was hearing it from people that were speaking it as like a fact. Like they're like, hey, I know this information, I'm telling it to you, rather than like a show where it's like, are they real? Are UFOs real? And then they kind of like debunk it and say like, oh, probably not.
Yeah.
And then you don't really take it seriously. And that's kind of the whole point of that. Why the mainstream tries to kind of portray all this as like, oh, it's, here's the stuff that people think, why they think they're seeing UFOs and ETs, but this is what they're actually experiencing. And it's like, but when you actually dive into this information and people that have the real experiences and have the real knowledge and they're presenting it to you, I don't know, something to me just like resonated so strongly with that. And I'm like, this is it. This is true. Like, I know.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get enough. I just like,
And then it's important to realize, like, so once you get more and more into it, imagination is key here, because if you can imagine it, it can exist, and that's really hard to grasp, especially early on. But I think because it's so strange, the truth is so strange. It is stranger than fiction. So when you start going into this stuff, if you don't have an imagination, you're going to limit yourself to what you can allow. So you really need to be open-minded. And alien life does exist. Extraterrestrials do exist. I'm an experiencer. I could share plenty of experiences I've had if you listen to the podcast. But that doesn't mean anything. All of us are experiencers. But you have to be willing to open your mind and be able to imagine the possibility of this as a reality. And that's when it becomes real.
And then the next level of that is when you realize like past lives, and that you've probably existed as a lot of these extraterrestrials in past lives yourself, and you don't even realize it until you wake up to that, So it's pretty mind blowing.
An interesting point about past lives. So somebody made me aware of the term aporting. You know what that is? So it's like the aporting is moving an object from one dimension to the next. Allegedly your guides or your spirits or whoever, ETs, they have the ability to do this. And so I was put on this path where they made me aware that some stuff that you come across in your life, in this lifetime, you might buy something at an antique mall, or you might find something, but that might have actually been an item that you could have owned in a past life that was aported back into your path in this life, so you would find it again. So if we all have items that we resonate with, we don't know why, that might be something to consider. My friend, she brought something. Cool. She brought a singing bowl from a flea market, and the guy had no idea that he was selling it. He's like, I didn't even know that was on my table. Well, this thing, she had it dated, and it was dated back, I forget how many hundreds of years. And through some sessions, she realized that she owned it in a past life, and it was put back into her life now for her to obtain again and use it. And she ended up using that to heal a lower back problem that she had. Wow. So it's really interesting.
That's very cool.
Just an interesting concept. I know I kind of went off subject there, but
no.
We were talking about some of that this morning earlier, so I love that.
And actually, it's funny because when I got this amethyst, I opened the records for it, and it showed that I worked with it in a past life, and that it's something that I bring into every reading I do. So I was just like, I've never heard anybody actually say that in that way. So it was just really funny because it's next to me right now.
Yeah.
I love that confirmation.
And nice. Why I even got that, or why I even said that, because I found an arrowhead while I was looking for fossils. But I found an arrowhead, and when I picked it up, I got this overwhelming feeling. And I remembered that story of what she told me about finding stuff from your past life. And that's the first thing I thought of. And usually the first thing we think of is the truth, is the case.
Right.
When we start overthinking things, that's when we lose sight of it. Like the Native Americans said, we have three brains: the gut, the heart, and you go with your gut, you feel it with your heart, and then the brain is just really used to get from point A to point B. It's like for motor skills.
Yeah.
And when we start using our brain to overthink things, and try and get logical about it, we have lost all sight of the truth at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah, that human filter really gets you. So I see that some of our audience is ready to get into the conspiracy stuff, or what the CIA dubbed the conspiracy stuff. But, I think that, just for everyone watching, be discerning, question everything. If something doesn't resonate, don't take it as truth. This is really about you being able to start questioning, start doing your research, not just take what we're spoon fed every day. So I think that's important to recognize.
I was thinking back to 1965 or 66 when Walter Cronkite came on the news on Channel 7 at my house, and I saw the original broadcast. That's how old I am. But I was young. But even then, when I was little, I heard him talk about swamp gas, and I'm thinking, no, it's not swamp gas. What the hell is swamp gas, anyways? But I was a little kid, because before that I'd seen something, anyways. But the swamp gas theory never, ever came with me. And that's how long disinformation has been fed to us. You can think ever since Kennedy died, as far as I'm concerned, the disinformation big bucket has been thrown over the public, and for all of us to sort of ingest. And it's all been like, we don't want to know. We don't want to know.
Right.
We don't want to know.
Yeah.
But now we want to know.
Well, it's Project Paperclip, right? That's where it started, where the Germans came and taught us how to use media against the people. Well, I say us, but the government, So I think that's back in World War II at least.
Yeah. Krista says,
in Above Majestic, they've been out there in the universe since like 30s, even from that movie that I watched. Above Majestic, I think it was called.
Yeah, that's a great movie. Yes.
Yeah. You mean we mean us? We have been out there? You said
the Germans.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, humans, like Earth humans have been out there since the 30s, is what you're saying?
That from Above Majestic, they were showing them the submarines that they converted into flying around out there.
Well,
so wow.
Yeah, the Germans. I mean, when Tyler was saying late 1800s, that was the Germans' like early secret space program. That's what the Zeppelins, like those, were actually the part of their first attempts to get into space, and that was their early space program. And then by like the 30s is when they finally got to the point where they got to the moon, and they had bases on the moon and in Antarctica. And then they ended up teaming up with the Draco reptilians, and that gets down that whole rabbit hole. But the Nazis. So the Nazis were essentially like a manifestation of the deep state, like trying to take over the surface planet of the planet, and then they seemed to lose the war, but they really didn't, because they had the technology to go out into space and create, they had their whole secret space program already. So they kind of just kept going with that and like said, okay, we'll pretend to lose the war, but really they didn't. And then and then Operation Paperclip, like you mentioned, they brought all their scientists over here, and they basically, the CIA became infested with deep state people. And if you want to get a little earlier than that, I was just looking through this book to remember a name.
So this is really going to get out there, but the idea of reptilians is something, Draco reptilians is something, it's really hard for new people getting into this information to grasp. But so there's this guy, Carl Haushofer. I don't know how to say his name exactly, but so pre-World War I, he was a German, and he was sent over to Asia to work with whatever he was doing. He was like a linguist or something. but he was sent over there really. And while he was over there, the Green Black Dragon Society, which were like some monks who were in contact with reptilians, so they were teaching him and working with him and gave him the ability of foresight. So when he went back and he became one of the leading generals in World War I, he had this foresight ability. He could see everything that happened before it happened. So he was like totally looked up to by all the German military, everybody. So they did this so he could build a name for himself and people would trust him. That the next step of the plan was, he started getting telepathic communications directly with this Green Dragon Society, which is really, or the Green Dragon, the Black Dragon Society, which is really reptilians. So they started putting information into his head, and he was sent to go find Hitler or find somebody. And Hitler was the person they had in mind. So they were feeding him information, and he took Hitler under his wing and groomed him to become who he was. And the reason they chose him to do that is because people trusted this guy because of his abilities in World War II. So they believed him when he said Hitler is the guy. They trusted him. They thought, okay, Hitler is the guy. So everybody believed that Hitler is who we're going to listen to. This is how the whole backstory of really why Hitler became trusted and was put into power. This had been a plan since the late 1800s. And it just took that long to really manifest what they were trying to achieve. And I really cut out tons of details there because it's a detailed story.
So you have a podcast on that, I take it. So we can go back and look at your podcasts on those things, or have you got
Have you talked about that?
No, I've never talked.
Okay. There will be now. Now you'll need to do a podcast on that. Can we touch on what Q is just for our audience? Because
I've been dying to break out with that. Let's do
overview. Yeah, sort of an overview of what Q is from your perspective.
So to know what Q is, you really need to understand what's been going on behind the scenes for the last at least 70, 80 years. Yeah. We talk about the cabal, the deep state. They're kind of just different terms, the Illuminati. Essentially just different terms for the same secretive group that's been behind the scenes, basically running the whole planet for a long, long time. The deep state usually is in reference to in the United States, like specifically like the shadow government. So basically, when Kennedy was assassinated by this group because he found out about this group that was running things, and he was furious and wanted to completely dismantle it and like get our currency back from the Federal Reserve and all these things, like get rid of the CIA and all these things that completely went against them and would destroy them basically, at least in the United States. And they took him out because of it. And that's really when they ever since Kennedy, they've basically made sure they wouldn't have another president that would like actively be working against them in to that capacity, at least. So, or actually have one of their own guys fully aware of their, fully behind their agenda in power. And yeah, it's
so who's Q?
So well, okay, so they've been in power for a long time, unfortunately, and the military industrial complex, they've controlled it for a long time, but they're, a lot of people, they're still human beings, and they've seen this, and they're like, we have to do something about this. Like the good people in the military, basically, they're like, we have to come together, form an alliance, and that's where the term alliance comes from. Is they basically formed this alliance, and they've been planning at least since the 60s, at least since Kennedy, that they're going to take down this deep state, and they're going to free our country and ultimately the world. And so they've been working for a long, long time to do this, and they've gotten very close a number of times to making breakthroughs, but every time the deep state seems to be one step or a few steps ahead of them and takes them out and does something. to stop them. And when you realize the technology that this group's had access to, we talk about Project Looking Glass. Basically, they've had technology, we think, given to them by extraterrestrials, by these negative ETs that they're kind of teamed up with, to see the future. So they can literally see what's going to happen, and they take measures to stop it. So they stay in power, and nothing can basically stop them. Well, it seems like this alliance finally got
we obtained that
technology and possibly got it out of their hands, so they have no longer are able to stay one step ahead. So they're finally being taken down, and with the alliance kind of spearheading this. And Q is just like a mouthpiece for the alliance to tell us what's happening, and at the same time to kind of like rally the troops of us to create like this movement of like, hey guys, let's come together. And like,
well, it's to seed the consciousness,
seed
the collective
also.
So it's to help wake us up, because this isn't just
and it's because
it isn't just go break into space and take down these guys and it's over. No, this is a spiritual battle. This is a consciousness war. So they had to make this military operation public, in a sense. To the people who were being activated, would be drawn toward this information. They would see it. They would see this information. It would resonate, and they would get behind it. And we would all start waking up to this great awakening. And we can collectively take down this evil force instead of them just doing it on their own. They need us awake. They need us aware. They give us the information. They tell us where to look, and then it becomes up to us. And a lot of people call it psyop. They say that. Or they try and discredit it, but you have to remember the deep state is still active. So they are putting out disinfo agents to try and discredit everything that we're talking about. And when you are researching, remember that you can find both sides of every story. Even if something is true, you better believe there's going to be multiple websites debunking it, even though you know better. And because there's an information war going on too. But Q is helping people really realize or helping steer people in the right direction and where they should be finding their information. If you follow the Q drops, there's trip codes that lead to articles or books or different websites.
And also what it's doing is it's also a tool that they've used to kind of like throw off the deep state, because sometimes Q will put out something that seems to point to like something happening on a date, and then you'll see like a false flag happen right after that because they think it's coming and they're trying to. But it gets them to like use their ammo and to throw them off, so then they can do something else. And so it's like multiple things all wrapped up in one, really. And it does appear to be not just one guy. Like, and that's another thing. Like the mainstream media always tries to make it sound like it's just some random dude in his basement, like making all this stuff up, or like some right-wing extremist that's putting out all this stuff. And it's a right-wing extremist thing, and it's not political at all, because the whole political system's a sham and a control system. It's simply a military intelligence operation, and it's simply just putting out the truth. Right. And it's because like it seems to be a small group of military intelligence and some people in the Trump administration possibly, and it seems to be connected. Like Trump seems to have been recruited by the alliance, not the other way around. Because a lot of people try to make it sound like it's, oh, this is like Trump's thing. And it's like, no, Trump was actually asked by the alliance to run because he couldn't be controlled. He couldn't be bought off. And he was in a position to actually
so the whole thing with Trump is they needed somebody that could fund their own campaign, because they needed somebody who wasn't part of this bloodline, that wasn't part of the deep state. They need somebody new. Allegedly, he didn't want to do it, but at the end of the day, this isn't,
and has the fortitude to take on this monumental task.
Yeah, you can't have a nice guy up there doing that type of job. You need somebody with a backbone. But at the end of the day, this isn't about Trump, though, and that's where people need to realize that this is a military. This is the United States military. It's an operation. Trump has just happened to be spearheading the whole thing publicly. But behind the scenes, this is something global. This is a worldwide. Yeah, exactly. And you just, whether or not you like Trump or not doesn't matter. It's just because, he does say a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't agree with.
Neither of us liked him before, like back in 2016.
But when you realize what's taking place, it's like a breath of fresh air. Okay, now we have somebody who isn't part of this system, who is, I guess, the figurehead for what's taking place right now. Because with somebody like that, whether you believe what he says or not, has nothing to do. They finally have somebody up there who isn't part of this evil system, who isn't trying to deceive us all. He's just up there playing his part while this operation takes place in the background.
Which explains why the media and the establishment are constantly attacking him and trying to impeach him and attacking him nonstop. Like, it doesn't make any sense. People try to say Trump's a deep state person. Well, why would they be attacking themselves then? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
They're not trying to remove themselves from office. Like, it doesn't
Can I
make
ask you one more question about this? So the coronavirus, is this part of Q or not? Is this part of this operation, or is this just some random virus that escaped and got out here? Is this whole thing is this whole thing stop martial law, or is this
very multi-layered?
It's multi-layered. It's multi-layered.
Just your gut feeling, yes or no? Yes or no?
I'll just answer real quick. It's not. I think it was originally a deep state plan for depopulation. They have a whole book. They have a whole list of
and to implement the vaccine agenda.
Yeah, implement the vaccine agenda. They have a whole list of stuff that they want to put out. But this was just one of their things. Well, seeing the way things are going, they're trying to do this now before the next election. Their whole thing was to try and get Trump out of there so they can get their guy back in and keep promoting their negative agenda. So I think that the alliance knew this was the plan. They let it happen. If they do have access to this technology, they could kind of see a couple scenarios and how they would play out. So they saw this as an opportunity to basically initiate some of their plans and some of their some actions that they were trying to take.
Well, cover for
doing
some stuff.
So now we have this pandemic that is distracting everybody, but it's also allowing them to do a lot of stuff that they would have had to wait years otherwise to do. Like these mass arrest scenarios that we hear about, potentially children being rescued.
Yeah, the children.
Which we just recently, came across somebody who has firsthand knowledge of this in New York. Details that no one has heard, and we are going to have her on the podcast. So whenever she's ready, when she's ready to talk, it's going to be big. People need to hear this stuff. Yes. She was even personally asked to go be.
She was asked to go to New York to help with
the
children coming in, literally. Yeah.
But this virus is a big distraction. Like, I don't like honestly, everything you've heard about the virus, potentially all could be real. Like, I think there's multiple reasons why this happened and what it is. Was it created in a lab? Does it deal with 5G? I think it all comes into play on some level. It's really hard for any of us to get up here and say this is exactly what happened because we don't really know.
The thing I'm pretty confident about is that it was bioengineered. With all the evidence that points to that. And then there's even like Bill Gates, just look into him and all his connections to it. And then suddenly he comes out like, oh no, now you guys all have to take this vaccine that I created for this virus, and it's so obvious.
I do not consent.
No. Do not take the vaccine.
Track us all. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, but
no.
Herd immunity is best. So, guys, this is a great segue into my question is, so tell us about your show and where we can find you and what's coming up, and except this sounds excellent. So tell us where we can find you and when we can find you and all those things. Give your promotion.
First of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity to come on here and talk to you guys and talk to your audience. We got into a lot of stuff that you really can't cover in this amount of time. So we hopefully we did it some kind of justice. But you can find us, Journey to Truth podcast. We have a YouTube channel. We're on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. I mean, every podcast platform, essentially. You can find that we have an Instagram account, a Twitter account, Facebook page where you can keep up with us for just updates aside from the podcast. We're always posting stuff there. In late August, there is a conference, Camp Disclosure in North Carolina.
Right.
We're going to have a Journey to Truth Experiences Lounge set up where we're going to be filming people's experiences, putting together like a little compilation highlight video of the conference. And we're just going to be hanging out with anybody who wants to come. Camp Disclosure, August 27th through the 31st, North Carolina. Tickets are on sale now. Does that answer all the questions? I don't know.
No, but you got our curiosity going, and I think that's the main thing you guys do is get people to start looking and delving and being discerning and to be curious. Like, just don't go in that little shell. The big brother bubble is what I call it. Like,
stay out of the fear. Yeah.
Reality TV and just forget everything else. So
yeah. But it's easy to get caught up in the fear when you get into a lot of this stuff because a lot of it is very dark. But that's why we try to balance it with the spiritual and the uplifting, positive side of the greater picture of things. So
a lot of it is really dark, and that's where it's hard for people, and it's hard to look at some of this information. And once you see some of the stuff that is available to see, it's not easy, and it does change your reality. It does change the way you view things and the way you do things daily. That's the hardest part. It's not just like, oh, what's real, what's not. It's realizing that what is potentially real is really dark, and it's really upsetting. And that's where it's important to have that spiritual daily practice or something that's going to keep you, because this information could bring you into a lower vibe state. So it's really important to kind of bring in that light every day and work with this to balance it out.
Absolutely.
So can the normal news keep you in a low state, and that's the whole point of the normal news, is to keep you in a low state.
Yeah.
Because I always like to say, the light is already won. We just are catching up.
Exactly.
So the light is here. It's already won. We're just catching up. And we need to know all the things to speed up that timeline of going forward with the light. And we're so glad you could come. We're so excited that you're here. Thank you, Teresa. You always find the best guests.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me on. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, this was really awesome.
We got that one important question. That's so important.
All right. So if you had to choose a song to be the theme song of your life, what would it be?
I would say Spice Girls Wannabe. No.
Perfect. Yes. Totally accurate.
I'm joking. So just for everybody listening, they asked us this question like a week ago, or maybe even longer, and we totally forgot.
We're idiots, and we totally forgot.
We totally forgot to think about what would be a good theme song for our life. Like if we were to walk on stage and this song would be playing. So while I think about that, I'm gonna let Aaron try and answer.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Oh man, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
To pick one.
So okay. Give me an example of one of your songs.
Mine. I'll tell you mine. Okay, mine is Panic at the Disco, High Hopes.
Nice.
So that's the one I picked.
Okay.
All right.
Especially some of the lyrics in there. Some of it are talking about like burning what you used to know. And another thing is when you have nothing, you're still hoping for what's ahead and believing in it. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. And mine would be Disturb the Light, because it talks about how sometimes darkness can show you the light.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my jam. I love Disturbed.
I really like, so this is a fairly new song that was brought to my attention, but the band Set sang the song I Am. I really resonate with that song. It's a super positive message, and I think if anyone could live by a message in a song, we all should live by the message that's put out in that song. I Am. So I'll use that as my answer for now, because a lot of the music I used to listen to wasn't exactly the most high vibe stuff when I was younger. So this new, the music I'm discovering now is a lot more enlightened, And I would say that song really has a powerful message.
I love that.
Good choice.
Aaron,
Yeah.
I tried to buy you some.
Aaron's going through his playlist there.
Yeah. I'm like,
Okay,
what
got
is?
it.
I like the. I'll think of one like later and be like, oh, I should have picked that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to like. Man.
Probably like the Seinfeld theme song.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
We always watch Seinfeld for some comic relief away from all this information, you know.
Yeah.
I want to, as far as like a newer song, I want to say like there's a lot of Tool songs that
Oh yeah,
really
Tool's
good,
got some good ones on that.
Yeah,
last album.
really good like esoteric and kind of spiritual lyrics. Yeah, that like Lateralis. I know.
Yeah,
the
great,
lyrics are really good, and just talk about like us being so much more than this body, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, if you guys can put a YouTube link in the comments to your favorite song, we'd love that. So we can all go and listen to it and get vibed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, we weren't more
Totally.
prepared.
Sorry,
for
we
that.
weren't.
No, that's perfect. That's fine. It's always a hard one. And it changes daily. Let's face it. Like,
Oh yeah.
there's new things are created. And like you said, you're not listening to the same stuff you were 10 years ago. You're listening to new stuff.
You're evolving constantly, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the more we learn about Hollywood and music and everything, it's like, oh man.
Absolutely.
Great point.
Yes.
Great point. Yeah. Be
Yes.
cautious. Yeah. The mind control that's done with music, especially the music industry, those lyrics. That's a whole nother topic. We can get into that, but just be cautious of what you take in.
Yeah, you're right.
It's like, you know, the high vibe diet isn't just food. It's what you watch and what you listen to, who you surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, this was fun. Thank you. I appreciate
So much fun.
this.
Yes.
See.
Thank you so much for
We'll have
having
to have
me.
you on again, maybe after you've done Camp Disclosure, and you can talk about that stuff.
would be
That'd
awesome.
Really cool.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
hoping to get to Shasta if the borders open before the end of June. I was supposed to be there last week, but didn't get it there, but maybe next week.
It'll all happen in time.
I mean,
That's a magical place. I've been there. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm hoping. So thanks guys again, and we'll talk to you again.
So
Yeah,
I
maybe.
do have one last question I thought it'd be good to leave our audience with, but where would you guys recommend to continue the search for truth? If they were to look up a certain video or a website, or, you know, what would you recommend? Yeah, for them to be able to continue that journey to truth.
Well,
There's so many.
there's so many, but right now is the documentary Out of Shadows. Are you guys familiar with that?
That's a good entry.
Yes.
So
Red
good.
Pill.
Yeah,
That's a
we've seen that.
Like he said, good entry level red pill. I think a lot of people can get behind.
And then above Majestic at some point down the road.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
It gets really dark
Yeah,
above Majestic, but it's
the Fall Cabal series.
Fall of the Cabal series is really, really good. You can find it on
Obviously,
YouTube still.
Journey to Truth podcast.
Our podcast.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, that
Yeah,
is so
absolutely.
good. Yeah, that one I love.
Oh,
The
Jack, I
Cosmic
forgot one
Secret.
other thing.
What?
Yeah.
Our winner.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. I'm still having fun talking. Why are you trying to push me?
I'm not sorry. No,
No,
I'm
it's
not.
okay. No, just because I think that, you know, I think people are starting to be more and more interested in finding out why they know something's shifting, but they can't explain it. You know, it's so many people are feeling that collectively now that you can't deny something's not right with what's been going on.
Yeah.
You know, we've never shut down like this for a flu before, and it's killed people more than the COVID has.
Yeah.
You know, so why is everything changing, and why is it we wake up every day feeling like we're in the twilight zone? Because something deep underneath all this is
Golden
the
area.
source. It's time for people to start waking up to the truth, you know? So if they want to keep that journey going and be able to start opening up and you know, looking for answers, I think it's important to give them a place to go. But again, being mindful that if something is too much for you guys to handle, if like you're researching, I had to do this a couple weeks ago. I went deep in the rabbit hole and I need to take a couple of days out because it got too much, you know? And I was like, okay, I need to be outside. I need to get fresh air. I make sure you're taking care of yourself so you're not going so far in that it really feels crushing. It's going to be tough sometimes, but knowing that the battle's already won, love has won, you know, we're just starting to see what's been going on before, you know, it's being revealed so it can heal. And that's the most important thing we can do is hold space for that.
Yeah.
And we need to do this to move on, even like we need to rescue the children. How can we expect to go on as a world when we're all this is still happening.
Exactly. It's just there's a new energy coming in, and it's bringing everything to the surface, physically and literally. So what we're seeing now is everything just play out. We're seeing everything come to the surface to be exposed. It seems like things are getting really bad, but it's been a lot worse than that. Now it's just becoming
coming
visible.
up to the surface. Yeah,
it's becoming visible.
Right.
You can't.
Darkness is being purged right now,
and you can't heal unless it comes to the surface.
Exactly.
And the same internally. You know, if we have any traumas from when we were a childhood or anything, that stuff we need to bring back to the surface and process it, because that definitely will be holding you back from moving forward. So it's like a
more spiritual bypassing.
No, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It's so true for the as above, so below, as within, so without. Whatever we're experiencing internally is happening externally. Whatever's happening in the cosmos is happening on Earth. You know, it's all connected. So we can't really avoid it. It's just, you know, how do we face it? How do we handle it? That's where our power lies.
Absolutely. Beautifully said.
Edge of Wonder is another great source.
Yes, Edge of Wonder. Yes.
We're trying to get them too. We're trying. We're holding space.
And I highly recommend them for the simple fact that they do a lot of real research. They're true investigative reporters or they do investigative journalism, but they also, watching them, they show you where to look and they point you towards the news sources and the places you should be looking and where you shouldn't be looking. So that's a useful tool also as Edge of Wonder.
Absolutely.
I agree. Yeah, you kind of need the links they send. I love Edge of Wonder a lot.
Yeah. Very cool stuff. Well, thank you so much, guys. This has been awesome. We love your podcast, so keep up the good work.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
On my playlist for sure.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so the winner of last week's Share It Out that won a reading healing with Teresa is Araya Anra. Congratulations, Dragon Lady, you won. Woohoo, that's going to be a fun
she's
session.
She's one of my teachers. I'm so excited. Yeah.
That's going to be so cool. And make sure you guys share this out. Get the information out. Let's get more people awake. Let's plant those seeds, you know?
Red pill.
It's not about breaking people open, but allowing them to start questioning, encourage questioning, right?
Yeah.
So we're all doing our part by showing up and asking questions.
We're the pink pill. We're not quite the red pill. We're the pink pill. We're the pink pill.
And that's all you can do. You can't tell anybody the truth. They have to learn it. So
you can't force it down anyone's throat. You can present it and then tell them to do their own research and kind of like facilitate them in that, but they have to come to it on their own. And everyone's at a completely different place in their path. And this is what I've realized is like, you can't use the same tactics with everyone because everyone's in a different place. Yeah. And some people are going to be a lot more receptive to this. And some people are going to be very closed off. And you can kind of like, you know, depending on the person you're talking to, depends on like kind of what information is the most beneficial for the, you know, that they're going to be most receptive to. And
like I always say, I know we're running out of time and I'm sorry, but
we're our own people.
let's say you come across somebody who is just totally oblivious to really what's taking place, because there's a lot of, and it's not their fault. They might be brilliant people, but we're all programmed. We're all programmed, and we have to hold space, and we have to love them, and you have to realize that. But what I'll do is maybe consider, bring to their attention that you may want to consider changing your diet. Don't even get into information about the truth or about what's going on, because if you see their habits, if they're eating McDonald's and drinking Coca-Cola or whatever, I'm not judging anybody, but you're taking in this low vibe food. Once you shift your diet, you start noticing changes in your life everywhere. And until you do something like that, that's a good starting point for somebody who's like really just wanting to know where to go next.
Mm-hmm. This is a really good way, being in isolation, to shift your diet, because everybody kind of had to. Everybody's cooking at home, cooking better.
The tough part. I can do anything else, but the diet part, I have a chocolate addiction and I don't want to give it up.
It's hard. Yeah.
Get the best organic that you can
out of the COVID isolation kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
don't judge yourself about your. Don't judge yourself.
Yeah, don't be hard on yourself.
Don't be hard on yourself, and don't judge anyone else because they're eating a certain way. I'm just saying that from personal experience, it really does help. It really does help because there's chemicals in that food that put you in a state of depression. So it's not just about like eating the food. It's really more than that because we're being poisoned.
And you can think so much more clearly.
Yeah.
The better
Yeah.
you do is what I've experienced myself. I'm like, man, it's like the brain fog goes away once you
Yeah.
clean up your diet,
100%.
Yeah.
And then
Very
the
good
whole
point.
cutting fluoride out is great.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
better and
And
healthier.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Awesome. Great advice. Very cool.
Thank you all.
Yes. Thank
All
you
right,
so
well,
much.
Beautifully stated. Andrea says beautifully stated, boys. That's because we're all.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Andrea. We had a
Well,
great
this
session today.
Yes. All
This was
right.
fun.
Very- It was so much fun. We look forward to seeing
Kira,
what you guys
that
are going to
friend
show
from
up with.
South Africa is watching us. He says
Yes.
we are the
the
world.
Come on,
world.
sing it, Rhonda. Sing it.
No, I'm not going to sing that.
That's a good song. Right
No,
there.
actually, that is a
Yeah.
fantastic song.
Maybe I'll pick that song.
Yeah, that's a great.
There's my song right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was a whole bunch of people singing on that, and we couldn't hear if anyone.
Yeah.
But it's cool. That's a good song.
It is.
Well, thanks, guys. This was so much fun. I had fun, and we will gladly come back.
Yay.
Good,
awesome.
great, yay. And remember, all their links are in the video, so you can follow them. And guys, feel free to comment to any of the people on our thing. We'd love to have you do that. And stick more of your links in there. And we need a book now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a
I'll see you
blessed
next
week.
week.
Namaste.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.